All right. You know what I haven't said in a long time that I'm going to say to start this podcast?
You know what it
You know
is.
what it is. You
Oh my
know
God.
who it is.
What a
We
throwback.
are back. I was having a conversation with somebody a little while ago, and I was telling them, I was like, this used to be my saying because they asked me uh, about like social media and stuff. I was like, I used to have a saying, but a bunch of people told me it was stupid, but I miss it. I miss the fucking saying.
Bro, fuck the people who say it's stupid. That's iconic.
You know what it is. You know who it is. We are back. Welcome to another episode of the BG Perform podcast with my co-host, Coach Jerry Hayes.
We're
How are
here. We're
we doing
here.
today? We're here.
Pardon?
Jerry sleeps next to a track in
Oh,
California,
I
and
sleep I sleep on the train tracks in
he sleeps on the
California.
train.
I sure feel like it after last night's sleep, dude. That thing kept coming by. I was shaking the house.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
what
God. It went off like I'm not kidding. I probably woke up like eight or 10 times from this stupid fucking train.
I can imagine.
Oh, it's the worst.
I don't have that here in England or anywhere I've slept so far, which is good. But we're back. We got another episode today with Ted. Today, we're going to be talking about the BG Perform method and basically what that entails and why I think it's so effective and why Jerry and I have seen such success with a lot of the people that we train. And basically, I just want to go over the last couple because the last couple of weeks we've been talking a lot about discipline, kind of putting these things together and being able to utilize a lot of these tactics to make ourselves better inside of fitness. And the only reason we have these subsets they're set is because this is a part of what we do on a daily basis, right? So I think we're gonna get this thing started. Again, we got the AmTap podcast, right? So we're doing as much talking as possible inside of 30 minutes. We're getting there. Like I always say,
Inside of 45 minutes.
inside of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, somewhere around that range. But if you're ready, I'm ready. We're going to start this thing off and we're going to get it going. Three, two, one, boom. All right. So the last couple weeks, like I said, we have been diving into specifically last week, daily discipline. We've been diving into the frameworks of success, the BG perform guiding principles. And really what I want to do with today is dive into what it is that we do and why the method that we use is so successful for all the people that we work with, all the men, the women and children too. All
Not
of
just the men, but the women and the children.
them. But all of them, and why there's been such success in what it is that we do. And I think that a lot of the reason why there's been such success is the framework that we have, the way we think about fitness. And I want people who listen to this today to kind of get an idea of what it's like to work with us on a coaching basis, right? I think fitness, especially in the coaching world today, there's a lot of different tactics that I see being used. And it's and we've talked about this a few weeks back where we talked about the reason why we don't like the gym environment nowadays, right? And when you go into these places, when you step foot into some of these places, you almost get this sense of like, I'm gonna be screwed over, right? And on top of that, you oftentimes are underwhelmed by the results you get at some of these places. And it's really it sucks because I can't blame the trainers sometimes. I think a lot of times it is the trainer's fault. But I think at some of these places, they set the trainers up for failure in a lot of ways, right? And again, Jerry's kind of having this experience right now, but I think that no, not that Jerry's a bad trainer. I just want to make that clear.
I'm a fucking horrible trainer. Don't talk to me.
He's a great trainer,
I
but
just bring them on
like
here because I feel bad.
no, he's a great trainer, but he's seeing this firsthand, as he's working. But I think when we look at the industry as a whole, what BGPerform, what I always wanted it to stand for, and now that obviously Jerry's with me, I think that what we want it to stand for is really like kind of like the beacon of light in a lot of ways for a lot of people who may be lost inside of fitness. And I know it's a corny cliche thing to say, but I really mean it where I think nowadays, even at the highest levels of fitness, they miss the point of it. And I think so many people nowadays, not that I don't want to build a brand and have it be worldwide. I think people skip this part where it's like, hey, I actually have to help people. You know what I mean? Like I actually have to put myself out there and do years of dirty work and put my face in the dirt and do free sessions and have people at half price and then build up to this full client list, and that takes time, you know? And I think with the BGPerform method, one of the things that I've always wanted ever since I started this was to be different, not only different in a way that's like, because there's a different and then there's like a different that's like you're just being different to stand out, like contrarian, you know what I mean? And contrarian's thrown around a lot today where it's these people who are like, I think differently, and they don't always think differently. They just choose to think the opposite of what everybody thinks, right? And with us, I think one of the cool things with myself, and I think one of the cool things with Jerry that I've noticed in the last, especially, because we've been heavily working together for the past like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. But even before
Yeah,
that, I've
but
known you my whole
even
life.
even more recently, but for since like we started in like 2020, 2019,
Yeah,
like
like
at the
right
hit
when
of the
COVID started.
pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think one of the things that I've noticed is like me and him and I have always been able to take in information and dissect it, but then also be willing to change. And I think that this is where I've seen a lot of failure inside of coaching and why I think that the BG Perform method is stands out amongst the rest, right? I think when we start to look at this from a certain point of view, you want a couple things inside of your coaching program. And I think that where people miss out is so many coaches nowadays, they think of the program as like the main thing, right? And I think that anybody who talks to us and anybody that talks to me specifically, you know, I never put the program first. And I don't even talk about the training program unless they ask about it early or, it's something that they originally came to me about. Outside of that, it's understanding who this person is, understanding how they actually fit into a program, and then building a program for them. And you don't build a program for someone first and then like ask questions later, right? That's how you set someone up for failure. And I think with the BG Perform method, one of the things that we have always done ever since the beginning is set ourselves apart by developing that relationship. And I think, at the end of the day, for us, and especially like, because I've had people obviously ask me how I've gotten, to the clients I have and like the job that I have now. And, you know, I'd love to say it's my programming. I think my programming obviously has a lot to do with it. But I think the biggest thing that sets me apart is like my trust that I have with my clients and the relationship that I have with my clients. And the BG Perform method puts that first, right? And I think that no matter what, at the end of the day, Jerry and I both, when we sit here and we write these programs out and we build this business, we not once have we sat there and been like, how can we scam these people? How can we make more money?
Yeah.
How can we put this in a position where we can get more money out of these? Like we're genuinely here to create something that helps people and lets them kind of figure this out, because I think that fitness doesn't have to be that complicated, and it definitely doesn't have to be inaccessible, right? And I think even nowadays, as I've realized with myself, like I'm a bit inaccessible in some ways because I'm not somewhere, I'm not really any one place, and I can only work with so many people at a time. So one of my goals is to be able to kind of spread that information and awareness as much as we can. And having Jerry is helpful. Having, us together is even more helpful because obviously two brains are better than one. And I think what we've been able to create is a system, is a method. And you see this in the ways that we communicate about this stuff with the guiding principles, with the programming. And if you have worked with us in the past, I think that most people we've worked with in the past have commented probably on the relationships we build outside of, or like first, right? And then they talk about the amazing results we've gotten in regards to the programs. And and I say this because to start this off, and I want to give Jerry a second to talk as well, but to start this off, the BG Perform method starts with trust, it starts with communication, it starts with language, because that is what actually helps someone get results in programming. And I can't stress this enough. Like I really can't. I say this so many times, and sometimes I kind of repeat it so much that I'm like, oh, this must be common knowledge, and it's not. And I think that like what we do as coaches is give people the framework, we give people the little nudge that they need and the little push to be able to do and reach and achieve the things that they want to achieve, you know? And when we look at this at the end of the day, it really just comes down to it being us supporting them on their journey, right? And that's in essence what the BGPerform method is. It's almost a springboard for these people to obtain better information, obtain quicker results, obtain a better lifestyle, right? And I was having a conversation with someone yesterday who was a potential client, and we were talking, and he was like, "Listen," he's like, "I mean, just hearing you talk is different than any trainer I've ever actually like worked with or talked to." And he's like, just the way you kind of describe things, the way you talk about things, and he was like, "How long have you been training?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I've been training just about like 7, 8 years." He's like, "Oh, how old are you?" And I was like, 29. He's like, 29. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Wow, like you're young." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like, but there's been a lot of experience, owned a business for 3 years, traveled the world the last year, made a couple big moves in my life. And all of that was centered around kind of developing, going and looking for like the answer to this question that we're answering today. Like, what is the BGPerform method, right? What does it look like? Even where is it? Where did I find it? Where did we find it? Where did we develop it? Where do these ideas come from? And like it all started from this idea of being in New York, being in Albany, and feeling stuck in the position of I was in a gym. I had my quote unquote dream at the time, and it kind of just like fell apart underneath me, right? And from there, I knew there was something more to be had. And as I've developed, as we've searched, as Jerry's made his moves, as I've made my moves, as we've trained for things, as whatever it is, every single time the BGPerform method gets better and better and better and better, right? And I think you and I specifically have changed completely since the beginning, right? And I think we've changed completely in regards to how we train, how we speak, how we work, how we operate, and it's made the what we do so much more efficient on a daily basis that now it's such an inviting picture for somebody to come in. And like for me it's so weird because sometimes when I put it out there and I think about it, I still think it's in the phase of like when we first started, right? And when we were still having these conversations or we were still starting in this industry, and I look back and I see all the things and all the progress we've made on the method, on the philosophy of what we do, on the principles, on the systems, and it's like, whoa, like we're actually like we got something like special here. And I want to give you a minute to talk about it on your end of things, but like I think that's a good place to start because I just took up 11 minutes, right? That's a good
It's just
place.
straight passion. That's
Take
all. Just passion.
take half of the podcast up. But actually no, not even. This is about a quarter of what we're gonna do. But yeah, go ahead. Give us some thoughts.
Some thoughts, some of the thoughts I have right now. I think the biggest one, obviously, is I mean, you said it is we want more than just to be trainers in the industry. We want more than just a standard that's been set. And especially with, like you said, where I am too, right now I see a lot of fresh trainers, which is always good. We need
I want
more
to just
trainers
one
in the
thing.
field.
Sorry to cut you off. I want to make money. I want to have a successful business, right? I want to
Yeah.
grow this thing. I don't want this to be confused because I think a lot of people leave this out and they try to seem virtue signaling with this type of stuff. But like, I want to grow my business, but like what we do is so much more than just waking up and being like, how do I make more money? Because I think the way that we think, which Jerry's going to talk about in a second, is that's how it gets to that point. But go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially when we think about building our business, it's more than just, all right, next dollar, like you were saying. We essentially want to be like a beacon of knowledge for everybody. And when especially when clients have questions and they ask us things, it's not some BS answer that we're just like throwing out of our butt. Like it's one of those things that we actually, like I was telling Brandon, a lot of the things that I answer always starts with it depends,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of factors that can play into a client's success, a client's motivation, a client's program. I don't know if you heard that train as I was talking, sorry. But and when we go into this industry and we see a lot of the scammery that we've talked about, like, oh, how can we make more money? How can we sell these supplements? It's one of those things that we we're trying to change that, and obviously that starts with a conversation. Being somebody who, like you said, Brandon, has experience, somebody that can not only like provide a program, which you can get pretty much anywhere a program, but a program that makes sense, a program that's comprehensive and will build upon itself and it's progressive. So I guess like I want to ask you too, like when we're doing this and you get a client who is unsure, like Brandon, what's like the biggest thing that you always talk about to like let them know that this is where they want to be?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I don't sell them on it. I don't sit there and be like, I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. What I do is I just show them from the start. And
Hmm.
one of the biggest things I do is ask, I talk, I listen, I ask the right questions. And I think one of the biggest things as a coach that you can do to improve the conversation really is just sitting there and actually listening and asking the right questions, because you'd be surprised at how many people in today's world don't just have people listening to them. And they might be talking, they might be saying what they need, because I think a lot of the times with with people, when they come to me for that type of thing, a lot of them have trouble verbalizing what they want. They want progress, they want to change, they want to be better. But when they actually have the conversation, it's like, well, I think I want to lose weight. I think I want to look stronger. I think, whatever. And then what I get to do from that is I have to listen, because sometimes it's not as direct as I want to gain 20 pounds because I want to, sometimes with the sports that I train, right? With MMA, with the other sports that I work with, it's very much like I have a thing on this date and I need to be ready for it. And it's like, okay, you need to be ready for it, right? For everybody else with like general population, it's like, hey, I want to get stronger. I want to not be in pain. I want to feel more confident. And that type of thing, right? Like is so dependent on the person. And like you said, it's such a it depends answer. But what's
Hmm.
beautiful about what we do and what we have is like I don't just because in the same breath where starting it depends is the answer for most things. A lot of the times it's a cop out if it doesn't get followed up by why it depends, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see a lot of people who are like, oh, it depends. And it's like, well, why does it depend? And they're like, well, it just depends. And it's like, okay,
It
well,
was a lot. It was a lot.
yeah. And it's like, it depends why, right? If it depends why, that answers the question, right? And I think with a lot of what we have, with the frameworks we have, with the systems we have, with the questions we have, for me, when someone comes to me and is like, why should I work with you? Essentially, it's it's showing them right from the start that it's different than the other places they go to. It's different from the beginning. And then another thing, right, is, and one of the things that's so important for me as a coach, because I'm not so much in person there anymore with a lot of these people, is the aspect that I'm available. I'm there to answer questions. They're not just on their own, especially in the online environment, because it's very tricky nowadays where people use online to make more money, and it's a very watered down product, and it's either a watered down product or it's not scalable, right? If you want to talk about business, it's something there. It's like you're either, you know, writing just a random program and everyone's doing the same thing, or it gets to a point where, you have to find this balance of like, how do I help the most amount of people, right? Because the online space is a great thing for me because I'm able to help more people at a higher rate, right? A higher rate of like efficiency and effectiveness. But at the same breath, it's like maybe I'm not able to do my best because I'm not there. So it's like those types of people, the number one thing for me right now is letting them know, like, when you work with me, it's not just here's the program and that's it, right? What I like to find out, and this is what I explain to people, is like, what type of language do you like to use? How are you as an individual? What are actually your goals, right? What are you saying? And then what are you showing me? as actions, and that's for me to decipher, right? Like that's not something that I force out of my clients, right? What I like to do is I like to sit there, and when someone comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to do X," I'm like, "Okay, well, what does Y look like?" And you get that answer, right? If you're like, "Hey, I want to lose 30 pounds," and you're like, "Okay, cool, this is great," what's your nutrition look like? And they're like, "Oh, well, I cooked once last week, and the rest of the week I ate out, and this, that, and the third." It's like, all right, well, you're telling me you want to do something, and your actions are completely in the opposite direction. And that's not for me to sit there and mock them on. But what that's there is be like, okay, this is a thing. This is a thing I got to look for. This is a thing we got to fix, right? And I think one of the beautiful things I've learned is when you give people a chance to talk, you get all the information you need from them, right? And that's where the individualization comes in fitness, not, because even to a certain degree, sets and reps, it can be individualized, right? Like it individualizes a program. Tempos was where you can start to individualize a little bit more. Movement selections, even more. But really, at the end of the day, like all that stuff is relatively general if we're
Hmm.
speaking the truth, because like everybody's gonna do some type of squat, everyone's gonna do some type of hinge, press, push, pull, that type of thing, right? Where the individualization comes down to is like, okay, how many days a week are you able to train? If you're able to train 4 days a week, how much time are you able to train? If you're able to train for 45 minutes, where is it? What's the gym look like? What equipment do you have? Can you actually execute this? And this is what we talked about before, which is like when you have some type of, say, method, or you have some type of framework of thought behind this stuff, this is where things get really easy, because you already have a baseline of what you think of as a coach, right? And from there, you layer on the details and all this stuff by listening, where it's like, okay, I know what a general human avatar needs to be doing, right? Now, let's say that human avatar has kids. All right, we got to look for this. Now, let's say that human avatar has a 9 to 5. We got to look for this. Now, let's say this human avatar has an injury or has some training history that, they need to work on. Now we got to avoid this. And that's when we start to dwindle down. It's like this baseline is everything we can work on, all the tools we have at our disposal. And then it's almost like an individualization is like a filter of where we start to, okay, this is what we need. Okay, now we have this, but they need this. We got to add this or take away this. And we start, and then once you answer these questions, and this is why what we have in our initial assessment is so important, is you get the actual results on how to make someone a program, right? And once you answer those questions, or you listen to those questions being answered, then it's easy. And I saw someone the other day on Instagram. This might have been a couple weeks ago, but he put like, you're under no obligation to do an initial assessment with somebody. And yeah, you're not under any obligation, right? And that could be a standard, but I think at the end of the day, if you're not showing the client you care enough to ask the right questions, then like what's the point, right? And it's not to say that, like, because again, I really think that fitness is super simple, right? And I think at the end of the day, if some people just start moving, they're going to get a lot of benefit from it. But if you want to make real change, the individualization comes in with the fact of like, hey, what's your schedule look like? How many days a week can you actually work out? How much time do you have? Do you have kids? Can you cook? Do you have equipment? Are you motivated right now? Are you unmotivated right now? Do you have a history of starting and stopping? What's that look like in the past? What do you like to do outside of fitness? What are your goals outside of fitness? And these are some of the things that I like to go over. And I've had multiple times where I've had people come to me with my questionnaire, and they're like, "Wow, I've never been asked that before." And I get them like, and that's not to like stump them, but it's like I want them to think. I want them to think like, what do they want to accomplish outside of fitness in the next 6 months? What is important to them, right? Because that gives me an understanding of like, who are they? Because most people, they're not fitness enthusiasts. They're not someone who's like, hey, I wake up and eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff, right? And I think that that's okay, and it's not bad. It's just that like you want to be honest with yourself. And I think some people enjoy fitness, but to a limit. And when you enjoy fitness to a limit, that's where someone like us can help, where we're like, hey, we have the frameworks, the knowledge, the information, the experience. Let us listen, right? And tell you the path that you need to go. quicker, more effectively, more efficiently, right? And that's where I think the beauty is and it is that we do. So I guess that's a long-winded answer, but that's what I like to go through when someone comes to me and asks that question.
No, I think that's good because I think you said it perfectly when you said like how that guy that you were watching said that you don't need to do an intake form or what was the exact
Yeah,
term?
like I said, like you're under
Like
no obligation to do like an
to do it.
assessment with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, so an assessment, and I think you answered it perfectly because the assessment starts one, you get like you said, you get to understand and know that client
Yeah.
not only as a gym goer, but an everyday person. You find out their day to day, you find out the things they might struggle with outside of the gym. That might affect the training and it might not, but at least you understand the type of motivation that they have. And not only that, the program that you build, if you have somebody who is struggling day to day and you find out that they're working three jobs and that recovery will be tough, you might know, okay, let's dial back on volume, ease into things first, let things fall into place, and then we'll make changes from there. So it's
Hmm.
more than just finding out who they are for the sake of knowing them, because obviously that's important and we want to know our clients and understand who we're programming for. But it's also important to understand what struggles they might go through because that will affect our programming as well. And when I look at, I just, I had a consultation with somebody who's 5 months pregnant. I think it was a Saturday morning. And I've worked with her before. And after the move, like obviously we had to stop a little bit, but starting back up, she was letting me know, like, first of all, this is a person who squats perfect. Like the type of squat that when you look at it, you're just like, I wish I had that squat.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where now, since she's pregnant, she's like, yeah, squatting feels good. But the deadlift, which was also perfect, she was like, the deadlift starts to feel uncomfortable now. So
Maybe it's the baby
it's,
idea.
when you say,
Maybe it's the big
yeah,
baby.
it could be the baby in the stomach, but it's when we make changes like that and we ask these questions, we find out those little things, which is obviously important. So it could be as obvious as that, or it can be, okay, because she's pregnant, now sleep is harder. So she was letting me know I'm tossing and turning at night. I'm not getting a full night's sleep. When I get in bed for 8 hours, I get six. So little things like that are important to know because obviously when we program, we'll we'll change volume and intensity based on those little things. Because
Mhm.
even if you've worked with this person and you understand who they are, things change, people change, and their timeline changes. So there are a ton of factors that can affect their programming as well.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, I think the realistically, when you look at this stuff, building a program and getting results, the program itself is probably 10 to 15% of the actual success of the program, right? Like maybe pushing it to 20, 25%, right? But then from there, it's the questions, it's understanding, and then this is a big one, the communication during that, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
that what
Mm-hmm.
happens is a lot of times, and I used to struggle with this as a coach when I first started out in person, was like the communication aspect. I would either not communicate fully with clients when they weren't with me, and I wouldn't ask the right questions during the training program, right? And you miss out on some of these key details of the program that they're following. And with this as a coach, right? The initial assessment is very important, right? That initial questionnaire, whatever you want to call it. But then from there, it's this constant tweaking and fixing and tweaking and fixing and testing and fixing and testing and fixing, like of a weekly and monthly basis of paying attention to the little details of a program by listening to the client, right? Making sure you're checking in, making sure that they know you're there to help them, making sure they know if they reach out, they're going to get an answer, making sure they know if they write something down, they're going to see a result. Like I just had this conversation the other day because I had a client who's been writing stuff on Coach RX and I was missing it because I didn't check the little details of the specific movement and I missed it and I didn't see it. And she was like, "Hey, did you see what I wrote?" And I was like, I I was like, how did I miss this? First off. And I wrote that down in my journal, like need to make time to see, like double check these things and make sure I don't miss these questions. Because that's like those little details, especially online, that's where you fill in the blanks as a coach, right? Maybe you aren't there in the moment, maybe you can't see those things in the moment, but as a coach, when those little questions pop up, those are the cues you need to look at something and say, needs to be fixed, needs to be adjusted, this needs to be answered. And I think people look at coaching now as like this short term, like, oh, I'm here for an hour. That's what I think about this person for the hour. That's it, right? And in online space, it's like, I write this program, general or individualized, whatever, and then it's like that's it. I don't think about the client anymore. And for me, it's like the opposite. It's like, I write the program, which is takes me a bit of time, but then it's like, okay, what are the things I can improve? What does this client do? How was the week? Did you like this superset? Did this feel good? Did this make sense? And you go through this whole process and it's like, okay, well, like, if you're seeing this stuff and you're as a coach, you're taking it in and actually diving into it, that's where you start to see the individualization take place. And realistically, at the beginning of a program, like the physical assessment only helps you so much, right? Like you
Hmm.
can see a decent amount of progress in it from the beginning, but like individualization is like an ongoing process in coaching where we start to really see like how do they respond to X types of movement? What do they respond to rep sets and schemes and tempos? How do they respond to weights? How do they respond to heavy loading? How do they respond to light loading? Do they feel better when they do heavy loading for less reps? Do they feel better when they do less loading for higher reps? Where this is where the individualization actually takes place and occurs. And this is where we start to see the success, right? But it starts at, kind of bringing this back to the beginning. It starts with what we at, BGPerform, Jerry and I consider to be our guiding principles, our framework and method and systems, and then just building trust and vulnerability in ourselves and the clients to know that no matter what, we're giving our best and they're going to receive the best from us. And we're always
Hmm.
willing to take feedback. We're always willing to answer questions and be there and hop on calls. Like one of the things as well, I think obviously once you get to a certain point, it's very hard to please everybody, right? As a coach. And I think like when I always have time, when I have time, when I have extra time, it's not like I blow it doing nothing, like I always reach out to clients. I have my days that I reach out to my clients every single week. I make sure that if anybody, I give one like specified 30-minute call online, but I'm always willing if I have the time and someone needs to talk, I'm always willing to hop on another call. You know what I mean? Or hop
Hmm.
on something just to talk and go over things, because to me, those moments are what make a coach special. And that those moments are where you see the real change, like I always struggled myself when I had like one time to talk to somebody because it's like, all right, I have all this shit I want to talk about, and what if I don't get everything in? What if this, that, and third, whatever? And what would happen is I'd become overwhelmed, and then I would like waste the call, like when I was in that position, right? And nowadays it's like, hey, we have this time to talk, right? This is set aside each month for you, regardless of whether you want to use it or not.
Hmm.
Outside of that, if you need something, message me first. If I got the time, we'll sit down and we'll talk. Right. And I'm always, you know, I'm someone as a coach who, no matter what, I'm always going to make time for the people that I care about. And I'm always going to make time for the people who are my clients because they're trusting me with that. But I also need to make sure that they're getting the best version of that. And sometimes that takes a little bit extra work. Sometimes maybe I'm not as efficient with my time because I put a little bit of extra time into some of these things. But I think that overall, the method, the BGPerform method, what we do is influence, like literally what our mission statement is, which is influence the highest standard of coaching, right? It's when you work with us and you have another experience or you come from another experience, most of the time it's people who come from another experience. They see the level up in coaching, they see the level up in communication, they feel the luxury feel of what it is that we offer and the results that we get and the communication that we have. And it's, like I said, I think my longest client I've had is over 7 years, right? And I think that that's like from literally from the beginning of Thrive when I started Thrive, which is 2017. And I worked with her for the first 3 years that I had Thrive, and I've been working with her online basically ever since. And then from there, I'd say right now the average client life that I have is like at least over 2 years. Like everybody else that I've worked with is about 2 years, and anybody else that I've worked with in the last year has been just about a year now. And I don't take that lightly because that's like that's what I want to see. That's what you want to hear. You want to hear people that like, and how many, realistically, how many trainers can you go to and be like, I've had a client for 7 years, or even one person, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like it's tough. Like that's longevity. Like that shows that what you're doing in your career is working, and there's people out there who trust and believe in you in that capacity for long periods of time, right? And as my client list has started to grow in the last few years, I've always kind of gone into that route of like it doesn't matter if you're Amanda and Ian, it doesn't matter if you're Paul, like you're gonna get treated the same way, right? You're gonna get
Hmm.
my time, you're gonna get my thoughts, you're gonna get my intensity, my passion, all that stuff. It doesn't change by, and I have trouble too because there's some people who, I work with like general programs and some of the amateurs that I work with, and they ask me questions. And I'm like, boom, do it. Let's do it. Here's the question. Here's the answer. And I'm like, like not that I shouldn't do it, but it's like, that type of program that we offer isn't meant for me to like help with it, right?
Hmm.
But I just have such a passion that I'm like, I want everybody who steps into the BGPerform sphere of influence, right? Like I want them to leave knowing like that dude fucking cares, right?
Hmm.
And like, I got results. Like maybe they left because of money, maybe they left because of whatever, but I guarantee you can never find somebody. If they do, I'm probably maybe this will fucking backfire at myself in like five.
Yeah.
I don't think you could find somebody that's gonna leave and be like, that dude didn't care and he was a shitty coach, right? I think that everybody that I work with, because of the methods and the framework and the way that I think about this thing as coaching, and like I said, even the mission statement that we have, which is to influence the highest standard of coaching, like that's my motto, that's my mission. That's what I do every time someone comes in, is I want them to leave and be like, fuck, now I have a new standard for coaching. Like that has to be what I do for coaching, right? And yeah, anything to add to that?
I think that's a good way to put it is one, just leaving the highest standard of coaching with every person we work with. I always make a joke with my clients when I'm working in like a public gym. I say this is incredibly like out of this world. It will never happen. But if for some reason every coach's clients had to form a team and they had to fight to the death, I want all my clients to be standing at the end. I want you
That's a
guys to
good one.
win in a fight to
Oh,
the death.
my team would fucking kill everybody.
Yeah,
My
dude.
team would
Yeah.
fucking murder.
Put Ian and Paul on the front lines. Okay, just doosh, 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 doosh.
Oh my
But
God.
like, it's one of those things. Like I tell them, like I want you guys to be at the fittest you've ever been in your life at any given moment. If whatever challenge pops up, I want you to be able to overcome that challenge. And like essentially, if like I said, I don't care what other trainers are in this building, my clients, you guys are going to be the ones that come out on top. And every time I say that, like
I
it's
might
like,
lose a few of you.
yeah, it'll be worth it. Just give the wait. Was it the speech from Attack on Titan when they're about to go? Who gave that speech? Was that wasn't Erwin, was it?
No, it was oh wait, maybe it was Owen Smith's.
Erwin
Owen
Smith?
Smith's.
Eren Yeager. But anyway, either way, I try to like I tell them like it's a stupid little goal that I have in my head and it'll never happen. But that's the intensity that I bring to every session. If you were to fight to the death, we're gonna make sure you survive.
That's funny. I've
So
never thought
it's
about it
like
like that.
yeah, it's more of like an immature thought process compared to like, yeah, we want to influence the highest standard of coaching because that's essentially what it is. But I want to make sure that all my clients are essentially killers. Like they'll be able to hold their own no matter what obstacle comes their way.
Yeah, my clients would fucking kill everybody.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
I just need
Not
Ian.
you would you say you just need Ian?
I just need Ian.
Yeah, just give Ian a sword and a shield, and he just throws him to the side, just uses his
No, I was
fists.
gonna say he would just use his fists, 100%.
Yeah. And we're like, what's this for?
Definitely.
And just get
Definitely.
rid of it.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know if there's much else to say. I think that like the only thing left to do is to sign up and, be a BG Perform member. But if you're still having doubts, if you're still second guessing yourself, reach out. Let us help you. Let us listen, right? And I think this is a big thing. Like, let us listen to you. Let us hear you. Let us help you kind of like organize your thoughts and go through that process because it is difficult. It's a very difficult process and can sometimes be overwhelming. And honestly, I it sucks because I went through it when I was younger, right? And I think we both might have gone through it at some point in our life where it's like we wanted to change, we wanted the process, but like especially for me, I don't know for you, Jerry, but like for me, there was points when I was younger and I wanted to lose weight and I just didn't know who to ask, and the people I did ask, just which we talked about, they just didn't have any answers for me, you know? And anybody who did have answers were like, oh yeah, I cost this much. Like I'm always willing to help people. Like if anybody wants to have a conversation with me, obviously I'm gonna be realistic with things. But
Hmm.
I'm always down to sit down and have a conversation and give you some insight on your health and fitness or whatever it is that you want my opinion on. I can't promise you my opinion on everything else is gonna be great, but I think my fitness opinion is gonna be, A plus plus. But yeah, I think with what we offer, what we're doing, I think it's just something that maybe doesn't appeal to everybody, but I think the people who do buy in because it does, I will admit what we do with the level of commitment we have, we require, I know I require a level of commitment from people, right? And I need a certain type of person and individual because I've had that, oh, I'll take anybody type of attitude before. And I'm not saying that most people can't be successful, but it's like, to truly be successful in this environment, you need someone who's disciplined and willing to sit down and be real with themselves. And sometimes that takes some coaching, right? And that's all it really takes. But I think with what we have to offer and how we're doing it right now, it's only getting better as Jerry and I get more experience. We're reaching almost 10 years of coaching now. Like I said, I think it's been close to 7 that I've been coaching in general. Obviously, it's been over 10 since I started like working out and since like BGPerform was born, right? When he lost 70 pounds. But
Yeah.
we're getting to that point where we're talking decades of experience, you know what I mean? And hopefully by that time, people start to realize and start to see and feel the difference that we're making on a day-to-day basis and see the results. And I think that it takes time, but like I said, I think if anybody ever needs anything or needs to answer those questions or have someone just listen, reach out, you know? Any final thoughts?
That's the biggest thing. Just if you do need help and you do have questions, don't be afraid to reach out. I know, Brandon, you shared your experience where people were like, well, this is my cost. This is how much it is. For
Yeah.
me, it was more so when I would ask people, I honestly, it's sad, but I was shut down. Like when I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I want to bulk up, I want to gain weight. They're like, oh, you never will. And it sucked because obviously that messed with my motivation. And that
Hmm.
was one of those things where some people told me like, oh, just go to the gym. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm doing that. Like, what else do I do? And they're like, that's it. But you got to eat a lot more because you're skinny. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, I do that. What do I do though? And I
There
feel
are
like
shortcuts.
there are shortcuts. Steroids. Um,
Jerry got a new camera.
yeah, I'm loving it by the way. But
You gotta zoom
uh,
back out, unless
I
you want
lost
to
my
zoom in.
no, I lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was saying.
You said that you were talking to people asking them for help, and they said you're too skinny. Or you
That's
said,
right. Yeah. So obviously, like sometimes even that can take some courage. Like when we don't know what we need to do or who we need to talk to, but just know that we are a good resource to have, and we will give you actual answers that are well thought out to the questions that you have. We're not just gonna spew bullshit your way because we want to
exactly.
fight people who do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I got friends who will do
Yeah, yeah, we got connections. So
it. Got some friends that would love to fight somebody, especially if Ian doesn't get a fight soon. He might be looking to fight somebody.
he's getting antsy. He's just like, I'll
Yeah,
fight your clients or
yeah.
possible people affecting them.
Well, he just fucking fights me in the gym every day. So I'm
He
like,
just
I
takes
got
it
a,
out on you.
I got a bruise on my shin. I don't know if you can see it. Is it there still?
It looks a little maybe green, if anything. It's hard to
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah. I got a bruise from Ian kneeing me in the shin. So,
That's always fun. Yeah.
but I appreciate you guys for tuning in. The episode again, just talking about the BGPerform method and why I think it's so important that people be a part of it and experience it. If you ever have any questions, reach out and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.